Welcome to Hold My Purse, the podcast where self-care takes center stage and you become the priority. I'm your host, World, your guide on this journey to reclaiming your well-being and empowering you to live your best life. Bi-weekly, we explore practical tips, inspiring stories, and expert advice to help you nurture your mind, body, and soul. Join our tribe of self-care warriors and let's embark on this transformative path together. Today, we have a truly enlightening conversation lined up for you. Joining us is the amazing Chandra Guinn, a DEIB practitioner and educator with a powerful journey in advocating for equity and belonging. Chandra brings a wealth of knowledge and experience that we're so super excited to dive into. We'll explore the crucial distinctions between equity and inclusion and why belonging is the ultimate goal, and how understanding fairness requires examining history. So without further ado, let's dive into this important conversation. Welcome to the show, Chandra.
Oh my, thank you, Rhonda. Thank you. So happy to be here in the hot seat.
It's not hot. You got it.
No, it is. It is.
All right, so let's get started. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you became involved in the practice of DEIB, and particularly focusing on, equity, belonging, inclusion, all the things.
All the things.
All the things.
All the things. So yeah, I am a Southern girl. Mississippi born, Mississippi bred. And so I start there because really and truly, there are ways in which I see myself as being born into this work. Anyone that knows the state of Mississippi knows that it's a unique place. That requires skills to navigate, particularly as a Black person in the United States of America. So I want to ground that, I want to ground the conversation in that reality, but I won't linger there. I'll move on to say, after leaving Mississippi and doing various stints in other states and through other educational opportunities, I landed on teaching in higher ed as the prospective career, and wound up in higher ed administration for a significant amount of my career. And so prior to my present role, I directed a cultural center at a elite higher ed institution. And within that role, I had the privilege of cultivating a cadre of young Black people prepared to change the world. And after I had helped enough of them launch out into the world and got tired of them coming back telling me about the amazing things that were out there, I decided to take the leap myself and move into a professional role related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that's what I have been. That's what I've been up to. That's how I got here.
I love that. So we met in the work environment. I got to know you and to work with you. And one of the things that I really wanted to touch upon, because I see it's a lot, especially on LinkedIn, one of the things I want to touch upon is some of the challenges that people of color face in certain work environments. And when we first talked to prepare for this conversation, you were explaining equity. And I would love for you to really dive into what equity means, because I never thought about it. I was always diversity, inclusion, kind of missed the equity. And you made me realize that's the important part.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And thank you for starting there, because it really is the important part. I mean, because I think that what is important to first understand is that equity is the process, right? And diversity and inclusion are outcomes. And so we need to put first things first. And what we mean when we talk about equity in the context of DEI, which is the most common parlance, although I, of course, in my work, move it to the front because I think you want to start at the beginning. And when we talk about equity, what we're talking about is fairness. We're
Mm.
talking about fairness. We're talking about justness. And we're talking about what is required to actually level the playing field. It's understanding that we all don't start from the same space. So even providing people with the same resources or opportunities will be engaged differently because there may in fact be inequities based upon the structure that we are born into, that we come into as we age, as we move in and out of institutions for various reasons. So equity is about fairness and justness. And it is first because you need to get your house in order before you start to invite folks over or
Mm.
try to make people feel welcome.
That part, that part.
It's,
You used that as a metaphor for me when we had our conversation.
yeah,
And
I did. Yeah. Go
and
ahead.
that's so powerful. Let me ask you this now. What are some of the, I guess, challenges, or what do you see as common challenges when explaining equity to people who might not be familiar or resistant to the concept? Like, how do you walk me through how you explain that? Because that's a big piece.
It is. It absolutely is. And it's so important. I just, it's kind of late to the party when you look at the history of the concept sort of coming into our consciousness, because you hear people talking about diversity and they've been talking about that for a while. And then people added the I.
Hmm.
But I would say equity as the concept and how it's being defined in this instance was later to sort of emerge into common parlance. So it makes sense that people are unfamiliar. And I would say one of the reasons why people are unfamiliar is because they tend to confuse it with equality, because
Mm.
people began talking about, diversity and equality. We need equality for everybody. Well, we do desire for there to be equality, for there to be equal experiences
Hmm.
by individuals. But the truth is, you have to acknowledge when and where and how inequities show up before you can begin to hand out things in an equal fashion. Because even in so doing, if inequities exist, then the equality actually won't matter. It won't get you to the outcomes, and that's really to the desired or the most optimal outcome. And people look around and go, "But we gave them shoes, but we gave them a bike, but we gave them this." Yes, but you started with people who didn't know how to walk, or you started with
Mm-mm.
people that didn't know how to ride, or were too short to ride that particular bike that you gave them, or whatever it is, whatever context. It is really about thinking through what is the starting place for
Right.
the individual or the group that you are seeking to provide some level of redress or support. So people who are unfamiliar, generally it's because they really, you say equity, but they hear equality,
Hmm.
and they dive in to suggest that absolutely we want things to be equal. Absolutely. People should all be treated equal. Yes, but you won't get to that if you don't first acknowledge that we're not all starting from the same place.
Right.
Now, that's where people are unfamiliar, and that's simple education, right? It's like, here's the
Right.
distinction. It's a little nuance perhaps, but let's walk it out. When you find people resistant, typically it's because they actually have an inkling on what tackling inequity would mean.
Hmm. Hmm.
And they are resistant because they have bought into this notion of meritocracy and think of it as more than the myth that it is in terms of how our society plays out, how things in our society play out, right? So meritocracy is a myth.
Hmm.
In an
Hmm.
equitable society, you cannot expect that meritocracy is a leveler for everybody in the society, when you don't have people starting from the same place. And so when you talk about equity and you say that we have to look at making sure that we're providing individuals with what they need to be able to thrive in the environment that they're in, it means that somebody has to, if they're going to be honest, they have to acknowledge
Mhm.
what would cause someone not to be starting from the same place as another person. And then that's where history comes in, and we begin to have to really dive into the structures and the systems that make our present reality inequitable and unequal.
Dang. Okay. You went there. All right. So I love it. I love it. So I have two-part question now,
Mhm.
and you address anyone you want first. Unpack how the historical context, and some people are going to be like, what does she mean by that? Unpack the historical context. And then two, what do you do in an organization that does not have that equity? Like they're not engaging that, they're not even realizing that they don't have it. So how do you try to close that gap? Are there tools, resources? What do you feel needs to happen to start that process?
Okay. All right. So I wanna take a liberty here because you mentioned the house metaphor, but I wanna just go back to it really quickly because I think it may help when we start to dive into the historical context. So one of the things that people may have heard before is either a dance metaphor, like diversity is being invited to the dance and inclusion is being asked to dance.
Mm-hmm.
Or they may have heard the metaphor of the dinner party. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the diversity is being invited to the dinner party, and inclusion is having things you like on the menu. And what I say, before you have a dance or a dinner party, you have to clean house, and you have to assess the viability of the venue in which these things will take place. And that's what you have to do in the workplace, in the schoolhouse, when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to thinking about the historical context and this work around equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging, is you have to do a root cause analysis whereby you go back and you look at what does the historical record show for the lived experiences, probable, likely, known lived experiences for a particular group.
Mm-hmm.
And you examine what is the history of that group's experiences within the environment that is being examined. And you determine, based upon that history, whether or not everybody has had an equitable shot to actually thrive in that environment. Meaning that everybody have not just an equal access to the opportunities, but when they arrived, did it was an assessment made to determine what they may need in order to be able to thrive, because while they maybe had an equal shot of applying for it, they may not come in with the same background or experiences, but have a particular skill set that is necessary to do the job.
Mm-hmm.
And so it means for me, I guess the quickest, fastest way, because I have a note to myself here that says brevity. It is the why the 1619 project is so important,
Right.
right? So the work
Right.
of Nicole Hannah Jones,
Mm-hmm.
because what she said is we have to understand the full story of history and not just the story that we're told by the victor. We have to understand the full story of the history to understand how it is the present moment, the present realities have come into being for all of the individuals that are now being considered. And so looking at the history allows us to better understand, how did we get here?
Right.
What led to the creation and what led to the lived experiences in this moment for the people that are in this environment. And so when you think about a workplace, for instance, it is, what's the history of our company? Banks have had to do a lot of this work, right? Big
Okay.
banks, because financial institutions, um, many of them,
One in particular.
built their wealth through
On the backs.
questionable means.
Yep, on the backs of Black folks.
They're anywhere at any point where there has been trade in our history, you have to look at what was being traded and who was
Yes.
doing the trading,
Mm-hmm.
and who therefore stood to profit,
Right.
and what has happened to those profits and with those profits since that trade happened. And if you've never, dare I say, it's early
Say
yet
it.
in our conversation, but if you've never paid any reparations,
Speak on it.
then how is it that one would presume that any redress was made to the people who were negatively impacted by the inequitable trading that happened? And in this case, right, I am a Black woman. This is the podcast. I don't know how people are experiencing this, but right. So the truth is that there are peoples whose very personhood was being traded.
Mm.
And you have to understand that within the broader construct of what is the history of your organization, how was the capital created that made it possible for your organization to come into being, and how is that a factor in determining the policies and practices of the organization. And we got to look at our policies and practices again before we start the process of trying to bring anybody in. We got to get our house in order. So we look at the policies and practices that have guided the work through the years and determine whether or not they have been implemented in such a way as to create an equitable and equal environment for those that you would want to bring in and recruit.
Got it. Well, let me ask you this question, play the
Mm-hmm.
devil's advocate.
Yep.
So say a company does that, right? They
Yep.
do the background to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
But you still have individuals within your organization that are in positions of power or leadership
Mm-hmm.
who secretly and eventually overtly do not understand that, embrace that, or even try to understand it to a point where they treat people better. I'm doing a
Yeah.
delicate dance here because I got
Mm-hmm.
personal experience,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
how do you do that when you have people in the organization that simply it means nothing to them?
So I think, and this is the rubber hitting the road.
Big time.
Yeah, it's really when the organization determines what's in its best interest, given the industry that it's in, to consider what is future growth opportunities and possibilities are, creating policies and practices that will facilitate the greatest opportunity for the continued operation, growth, and expansion of the organization, and then insisting that everybody that is thereafter associated abides by, adheres to the policies that have been outlined that support a more equitable future, present and future. Individual responsibility won't be taken if no one holds anybody accountable.
Right. But you have
And
organizations that just don't do that.
this is absolutely true. It is absolutely true. And eventually, they may suffer a harsh consequence or a harsh reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the thing that we really want people to understand is, and I try to make it, I try. I use Serena Williams as an example when I try to help people understand what I mean, because many people resonate with sport, and if not, they resonate with iconic figures. And
Mm-hmm.
I say, if we look at the history, we know that from the time the Williams sisters entered the tennis arena, they felt challenges.
Yes.
I think most um, most folks that are inclined to know and speak truth would admit that Serena in particular received a degree of backlash every time she stepped on the court.
Yes, she did.
Well, in spite of that, she was able to win 23 Grand Slams.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to know when we going to tell the truth. Because if she was able to do that in spite of,
Mm-hmm.
what might she been able to do with the support of?
Wow, I never thought about that.
Yeah, that for me is that, because people want to tell you that it's about profit.
Right.
And what I want to say is it about maximizing profit for some or maximizing profit for all?
Mm-hmm.
And are we really being honest when we say that it's about profit? If you tell me that it's about maximum profit, and then you tell me that there's a certain group that is more skilled, has demonstrated more talent, more ability to do something, to thrive in a space, and yet when I look at your the makeup of your talent pool,
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that reflected, then I have to call foul, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have to say there's some inconsistencies here uh, when you tell me that what you really want is profit.
Yeah.
Now, I imagine, because I just can imagine your audience. I'm one of them, so I can imagine, right? So I want to just say, right, that this is not all about profit. So understanding that this is about people
Mm-hmm.
as well. And we want to maximize the human potential of everybody. So again, if you are not bringing diverse people who have diverse lived experiences and perspectives, so
Mm-hmm.
if you're not bringing them in, then you're not seeking to maximize the fullest, greatest potential of the
Right.
talent that you have in house, because you're lacking the diversity that would begin to unlock and open that up, right? So it's
Untapped
not
potential.
it's not the very existence of bodies in a place together
Mm-hmm.
that generates the benefit or the reward of diversity. Anybody who does this work will tell you it's not just about rounding some folks up, getting them in a room. It is about um, deftly cultivating a culture in which people can thrive
Right. And collaborate and
and
share
collaborate.
share their lived experience to
That's
come up
right.
with the best end product possible.
That's right. That's right. That's
Mm-hmm.
how you unlock the innovation.
Mm-hmm.
It's not inherent.
Mm-hmm.
It requires action and intention.
And a change of mindset, because you have
Yeah.
folks that
Yep. Yep.
just can't. So I remember when I first reached out to you and I said, Chandra, I really would love for you to come on the show and talk about this topic. And what really pushed me to reach out to you for that was a couple of things. One, my personal experience. Two, I have at least 4 people in my orbit that have had a bad experience in corporate America. But the real pushing for me was the young lady that unalived herself because of what she was experiencing in the workplace. And I thought to myself, this is getting to be truly insane when someone is unaliving themselves based on a situation they're in. What would you say to people that are in work environments that they don't feel the inclusion, they might have diversity because you can check mark and hire a bunch of people of color, check,
Yeah.
but they don't feel included, they don't feel the equity or the belonging. Like, what do you
Mhm.
say to people that are experiencing that? Like, how do
Mhm.
you navigate that?
Mhm. The first thing that I would say to someone is get to know yourself. I'm always gonna start with self knowledge, self awareness, because part of how you come to the realization that this ain't working,
Hmm.
is because you are aware of how it feels, of the experience
Yes.
that you're having. First thing is you got to get to know yourself so that you can tap in and be tapped in when it comes to thinking about, is what I'm feeling, uh, stretch pains because this is
Hmm.
a new area for me, or am I feeling something in my body? Is this triggering a reaction in my body that is
Hmm.
intended to let me know that this is not right for me? This is not good. This is not healthy. And it doesn't mean that everybody else that even looks like you is having the same experience, but it does not negate or discount the experience that you're having. And that's why you have to do your work so that when stuff is happening around you, because you
Hmm.
might ask somebody else and they be like, please, girl, that's just you. And it's like, but is it though?
Hmm.
Here's the thing. Once you assess that it is happening and it is real for you, it actually doesn't matter what's happening for somebody else because they
Right.
may be having a different experience,
That's
right?
that self
And
care.
that's it, right? You got to take care of you, but you really have to hone in on what does it mean. So let me just pause and say, right, when we talk about inclusion, we are talking about being seen, heard, valued. And then I think about the work of Tara J. Frank, who adds respected and protected.
Mm. Respected and
And
protected.
protected. Yeah, Tara's book is The Waymakers. And I think that is so important to bring into conversations around inclusion, because people, I think, pretty much now have a sense that when we say inclusion, we mean, seen, heard, and valued.
Hmm.
Yeah, but respected and protected are also important to the
So
equation.
important.
And when you think about what it means to be protected, it means every battle shouldn't be yours to fight, and certainly not for you to fight alone, right?
Right.
It
Hmm.
means that there's somebody at some level other than the one that you sit at, because peers can be helpful, but there's
Hmm.
somebody that has organizational influence that is able to say, this is what I observed, this is what I have learned of, and I want to investigate, and I want to take the necessary steps to mitigate.
Hmm.
We need to interrupt what's happening here, and it's not that person's job to consistently and continually have to correct whomever. Because in so doing, what happens then is you don't get the opportunity to thrive.
No.
People
You're
can't see you in your excellence because you
you're trying to
are
survive.
you trying to survive, right? So we can't get the best of you. We can't see the maximum benefit that you bring, that we brought you in to help provide, because uh you're having to fight.
Yeah.
You are armored up and having to fight. We have to remove the necessity for people to have to fight. That's what it means. That's what inclusive leadership means. The
Mm-hmm.
respected and protected part, that's what it means to be an inclusive leader. It's saying it is not requiring the person who is being impacted to have to
Mm-hmm.
also be the person that is speaking up and pushing for there to be change or a different way of being handled or treated.
I'm so glad you said, because I remember I used to think, I'm like, man, I'm fighting lions with stitches, stitches and sticks. I have nothing. And a friend
Yeah,
of mine said to me, she was like, that's because you didn't have an ambassador,
that's right.
someone at a higher level that
Mm-hmm,
was advocating
mm-hmm,
for you. And she was like, and guaranteed other people are having the same experience. But I want to go back to something because I feel like in most organizations, they really focus on, they put more emphasis on inclusion over the equity part. And I
mm-hmm,
know how you feel about that. How do you get organizations to really understand? Because I'm going to a forum next week,
mm-hmm.
and somehow I got put into the DEIB part of it. And I was like, oh, this conversation is coming in right on time. But
Yeah.
how do you get organizations to really get into that equity part of it and know that inclusion is important?
Mm-hmm.
And I know we touched on it just a little bit, but like, how do we really push that forward so that we can advance equity in an organization? Because I feel like, after talking to you that first time, I'm like, that is the key.
Yeah.
Because we can't get to belonging until we get to this.
Right. And you're not going to achieve the inclusion that you desire if you haven't addressed the inequities that
Mm-hmm.
are preventing people from having an optimal experience in your environment. Right.
100%.
Again, it really is inviting people over to your house and
Mm-hmm.
handing them the broom.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If I got to clean up the environment that I'm in before I can gain any measure of benefit or enjoyment from the experience,
Right.
then I'm not going to choose to stay, and I'm certainly not going to choose to come back.
Right.
uh so I really think that we have to help people understand. I understand the order that it's, again, come into the consciousness. People talked about diversity and all this,
Mm-hmm.
but we really have to understand that our our starting point is creating an environment that allows individuals to thrive. And that requires wrestling with questions around equity. Because
Mm-hmm.
I think people, we love terms. We love terms. Some of us love them because we like to throw them back at people. Uh, but we
Right.
love terms, right? And so people have glommed on to this inclusion thing because they said we really want people to understand that it's about all of us. It's about all of us,
Mm-hmm.
and so we want everyone to feel included. Well, so here's what I would say creates that response or reaction, and that is because people have poorly executed initiatives around
Mm-hmm.
diversity, equity, inclusion, such that you feel that you must run away from the equity part to try to get to the inclusion part, because throughout the process, people have been made to feel as if this wasn't about them.
Right.
And this is about all of us. The United States of America was an experiment,
Yes.
and
Preach.
it is teetering. But to the extent that we see value in being a diverse nation that is better, right? I used to tell my students our diversity is our strength, that
Yes.
is made better because of the wide range of people and cultures and experiences that we are able to bring together and meld together in a way to maximize opportunities for all of us. Then we have to understand that this work is all of our work. And if people used DEI, for instance, to beat
Mm-hmm.
up on folks, then that will make sense. as to why you now want to throw it back or retreat from it altogether and say, I don't want no part of that.
The resistance is real right now on this topic, right?
Now you got to put that somewhere on a slogan or something. The resistance is real.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we really have to get people to understand is we're all learning, and we need to be able to give each other grace and space and understand just because somebody mishandles something
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that we can't learn from that. Take the necessary steps, the remedial steps, to
Right.
make sure that we're all speaking a common language and have a common understanding, to then begin to dive in or advance or evolve further into the work. Um, we all make mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
but just because um, somebody maybe didn't come at this uh, this work in a way that brought everybody in doesn't mean that we need to jettison the very core of what's required to make the work stick. The reason,
Right.
because this thing happening over and over again, you see decade after decade,
Mm-hmm.
it flares up, then it dies down, it flares up and it dies down.
You
That's
have a
because
George Floyd incident that makes everyone and
every
their mama
yeah,
want to do it, but then
yep.
3 years
And
later, it's
we
not proving, we're not making money. How is
yeah,
this working? And they want to
yeah,
push back.
yeah. That's because we haven't approached it in a way for it to be sustained.
Yes.
Again, root cause analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get to the root of what's creating the problem for you and your organization. Let's address it at the root. Let's look at the legacies of practice
Mm-hmm.
that continue to be perpetuated, that some of us are in denial about because those practices aren't written down.
Right. Right.
Let's look at that. Let's be honest about that. And let's determine what we need to do to root out those practices in order to create an environment where everybody has a shot.
Mm-hmm. And that will help to create what I wanted to get into, that belonging. So how do you know, what are the signs to show when someone feels like they belong in an environment? Like, what is that, in your opinion, what does that look like?
Yeah. I think it's going to look different for everybody, but it
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, absolutely, because I broke out belonging. I break out belonging separate because I think inclusion is what the individuals that sit in the seat of privilege must do with intention in order to create the space and the opportunity for people to feel seen, heard, and valued. But
Mm-hmm.
belonging is what the individual who is experiencing it gets to determine.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody can tell you that you belong somewhere if that's not what you feel.
Right. It comes from you. You got to feel in your heart.
You
Like
gotta feel it.
I feel like I need to be here, and I
Yeah,
want to be here. I
yeah,
want to
yeah.
contribute, and that
Absolutely.
that takes.
Absolutely. And it's not just contributing. It's also, I feel comfortable enough to
Yes,
challenge.
that part, because listen, you taking me back, because the minute so a person of color challenges a system, and
Yeah,
if it's not based on what they're accustomed to,
right,
then all of a sudden you're the
right.
problem.
Yeah, yeah. And so how do I know that I belong? You know that you belong when that's not a burning, pressing
Yes.
question for you every day when you walk into the
Mm-hmm.
space.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
You
I
know
can
you
freely
belong when it's
share.
yeah,
Yes.
when you feel, when you show up there, like your showing up matters, and
Mhm.
who you are and how you show up won't be held against you.
Chandra, we got a long way to go.
Absolutely.
With some of the
Absolutely.
oh my
Absolutely.
gosh.
Absolutely.
When I scroll through LinkedIn sometimes, that's all I see. And I saw this one woman, and she was a white woman. She was like, "All right, we need to band together because women of color are having a hard time in out here in the workforce, and we need to help them." And I thought, Okay. I like that. Can we get that in every organization? Can we have an ambassador that can clearly see that there are issues? Because I mean, at some point we all share or we say, how we feel and what's going on,
Yeah.
or we suppress and we don't say anything at all and we leave.
Yeah.
Either way, that costs the company a lot of money.
Absolutely. 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 My understanding from everything that I've seen, that the acquisition cost is greater than the retention cost. So
Mhm.
so absolutely. I think this is the thing that I say whenever I have the opportunity, whenever I'm asked to kind of weigh in on this stuff, is first think human.
Mhm.
First think human.
Right.
It means that, we are imperfectly made. And it also means that through our interdependence, we can be amazing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right? I wasn't,
Ooh.
if the universe had decided, God, Allah, whomever had decided that I could do this by myself, then I would have been so equipped.
Right.
But we were gifted with different talents and different abilities. And together, we can do something amazing. But not if we don't all share that common belief. And I'll contend, because, we still talking, so I'm gonna be clear on where I stand. I
Mhm.
think one of the things that continues to plague us, to hold us back, is the very idea that at some point in the history of this nation, one group of people thought that they could categorize another group of people as
Mhm.
3/5.
Woo! Now you really going there.
Yeah,
And it's still there in the form of an
because
electoral college.
that's what happens, right?
Mhm.
Is
Mhm.
that if in any way you can diminish
Mm.
or discount another individual's full humanity, then that opens up the possibility that you can treat them in a way other than how you yourself would want to be treated.
That part.
You
That
have to
part.
disassociate,
Mhm.
right, from the
Mhm.
thought that they are a full, whole human being just as you are, in order to treat them in a dehumanizing way.
Right.
And when that's in your history, until that's rooted out, everything that comes from that tree is going to
Mhm.
be lesser.
Yes. Girl, you spitting some truth up in here today. Oh my gosh, I could probably talk to you for hours. Okay, so what would you say are some of your final thoughts or advice for organizations and individuals looking to create an equitable environment
Yeah, I do.
where people feel like they belong? So
Yeah,
equitable and inclusive where people feel like they're involved.
yeah.
What are your thoughts?
So I am not one that believes that leadership necessarily is based upon position.
Mm,
I think you can lead from anywhere. I think you can lead from any seat. But to the extent that you have hierarchical positional leadership in an organization, then there is a reasonable expectation that you will lead from the front, and you will
mm,
lead by example. So if what you desire and what you seek is an equitable environment where people feel a strong sense of belonging, then you must incentivize that, you must measure it, and you must monitor it.
mm,
You must be intentional, and and with that intention, understand the impact.
right.
And you have to get granular. You
Mm-hmm.
have to, so these broad categorizations, no, you need to go one level, two level, three levels deeper. So when you're looking at your numbers, it's not, we have this many of this group and this many of that group. No. What about the intersection? Because that's where they live. They live in that space of that intersection. That's what led Kimberly Crenshaw to coin the term intersectionality. It was because it was a unique experience being observed, right? It's not just being a woman. It's not just being Black. It's not just being queer. When you put those three things together, that person is having a vastly different experience than someone that actually has only one aspect, only one of those marginalizing aspects to their identity. I told you I came from higher ed. One of the most one of my most beloved titles for a book was "All the Men Were Black, All the Women Were White, but Some of Us Were Brave." And it was the story. It was the story of Black women in higher education. I think I'm getting that right, because when we talk about it, we talk about the men, and it's but they really mean Black men, and then we talk about the women, but we really mean white women. So where did the Black women fit into the equation? Well, when you think about intersectionality, there are more people with multiple marginalizing aspects to their identity that are not being considered or accounted for or understood to be having a very unique experience, because all women aren't experiencing the same thing in the same way. Because if they have other aspects to their identity that are also stigmatized, that's going to be felt, and I like I said, it's felt like exponentially. Like it's not just additive; it is multiplicative. It's so I need people to understand that. I think if you want to be about equity, if you want to talk about being about equity, then you lead from the front. You model the behavior you expect. You incentivize that behavior. You treat it just like you do other things that impact your bottom line, because in a rapidly diversifying nation, particularly when it comes to race, ethnicity, it does matter to your bottom line. And so you treat it as such. And you don't just celebrate diversity, but you interrogate the ways in which it shows up in your organization, so that you are, in fact, able to create the change that you desire. And then, because this is that part that you mentioned, and then you check in regularly with the people who have to tell you whether or not what you have done is actually being felt by them.
100%.
I told people, you don't get to call yourself an ally. Somebody has to call you that.
Right.
Because it's in your action, not in how you choose or aspire to identify, that we know you. I know the tree by the fruit it bears, not by what it intended.
So whenever I have a guest on the show, I love to ask this question about self-care. If you could create a law that everyone had to follow surrounding self-care, what would it be and why?
I have to tell you, Rhonda, in preparing for this time together, this for me felt like the most challenging question.
What? No.
Yes. And so with that, I have thought long and hard about what I would offer. And this is where I landed. I would create a law that required everyone to read or listen to something that prompts them to wrestle with what continues to harm them and prevents them from healing. And let me say how I landed there, right? Because So, I gotta sneak something in, right? So I love a good sweatshirt. I love a comfortable sweatshirt. I love having a favorite glass to drink out of. I love having some warm slippers, right? So I love all of that. And I know that maybe what comes to mind for some when we think about self-care,
Mm-hmm.
but what I know without a shadow of a doubt is that trauma leaves traces.
Ooh, that's powerful.
And it is what I believe gets in the way of not just self-care, but the expectations that we set for others in terms of how they need to treat us because we have unresolved hurt.
Yeah, I love that.
We got to heal. We got to heal because here's the thing, and I have a person that's really close to me that is the epitome of leadership, and what she tells me, because she leads a team, and what she tells me all the time that she needs her other leaders to understand is people show up as they are.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
you
they have
might think
background and baggage, right?
that's right.
Yes.
So you might look at them and think that you're dealing with a person of a particular chronological age
Mm-hmm.
and standing because they have some years and they have some educational credentials. But they really are and a really hurt and broken child that was orphaned and haven't been able to make sense of why they were even brought into the world.
Mm-hmm.
And they're showing up, and you're supposed to lead them. We have to honor and recognize our full humanity. So we have to do the work to heal, because trauma leaves traces. And one of the books that I really appreciate, that I think really came into popularity in these past 4 years or so, is The Body Keeps the Score. The trauma is lodged in the body. So every time you speak to that person, you're triggering something in them.
Yes.
And that's why they're responding the way they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not about you. It's about what's not healed in them. Self-care really starts with loving ourselves enough to heal whatever the hurt is inside of us that makes it possible for us to be fully human and for us to know our worth, so that other people have to respect that in us.
Man, you are spot on with that. Because leaving the traces, and then it impacts so many other people as well. Shots
Yeah.
fired all the
Yeah.
time.
All the time, because you haven't healed that hurt that has nothing to do with those people.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of doing that hard work, you coming out here just impacting lives, impacting lives and livelihoods for generations. Stop it.
And making other people miserable.
Yes. Yes. And making them second guess themselves. We've learned a lot of, I would say learned. I think there have been terms that have been popularized in the past 10 or so years. And I'm going to say the root goes back to the trauma that hasn't been healed. Gaslighting. Why are you putting that on that person when it's really about you and what you haven't done?
100%.
Right? If you don't feel worthy, then how is it that you think you can lead other people who insist upon you respecting their worth.
Chandra, you got a book inside you, girl.
No, I tell folks, at best, it's a pamphlet.
Okay, get that ebook going.
At best, it's a pamphlet, you know?
Some digital
So,
products out there.
yes. At best, it's a pamphlet. So I would make that. That's the law that I would make. I just, we got to wrestle with it. We got to wrestle with it, and we got to help heal ourselves. The body keeps the score. My grandmother's hands, post-traumatic slave syndrome, emergent strategy, trauma stewardship. These are some titles. What It Takes to Heal just came out. We got to do the work.
I agree with you, because if we heal ourselves, we'll make as Michael Jackson said, make the world a better place.
Yes.
Because it'll trickle forward, right?
Well, I think it's Eleanor Roosevelt that said, nobody can make you feel inferior without first your permission. But we got to know our worth. We got to stop giving people permission. Right? So I like that quote, but what I say is, they can't make you feel inferior without your permission, but they can make you feel out of place and unwanted.
Yes. Yeah. Wow.
So,
my bra is sweating.
But that's what this work is about. It's about trying to help people be more fully human.
And that's one of the reasons why I started kind of doing this. I mean, I was on a healing journey myself, and I was like, I can't be the only one.
You're
so
not.
My friends, reaching out to my friends, okay, share your story, because I just feel like if I could put it out in the universe, and say, hey, there's some things you should think about that, people may act upon it.
There have been a lot of movements started. And we are making strides because of it, even when people try to set us back. But a movement around healing is one that, for me, is where our hope lies.
That would be a game changer. If people can acknowledge it and act upon it.
Yes.
And there's so many tools out there. From therapy to meditation, Reiki, like balance your chakras, all of it together. Your food, your diet, those are triggers too.
Because
so much.
It's in the body. The trauma is lodged in the body. And until you heal it, every time you are triggered, you actually relive it.
It's a flare.
It's not just a memory. It's a reliving. Of course, that's weakening your immune system.
Yeah.
Of course, that's weakening your mental health. Of course, that's creating emotional eating. Of course, that is causing you to accept treatment that is beneath what you deserve as a human.
100%. And making you sick.
Making you literally sick. That is what the condition of weathering. We got people. I tell you, the concepts are just popping. We got the concepts, right? So we know that weathering, we know racial battle fatigue. We know that many people are in the workplace today covering. Even something like 40% of white men are covering. Right? Is hiding in plain sight because there's some hurt that hasn't healed.
Yeah. But they was shot fired on other people at work, though.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Just going around wrecking things.
Like a wrecking ball, for real.
Just going around wrecking things. Because they haven't healed. They haven't healed. And I just really appreciate Ms. Winfrey and one of her co-authors. The other person is the scholar that did the work, but when they landed on the question of what happened to you, not what's wrong with you,
But what happened to you?
but what
That's a
happened to
good
you.
that's an amazing reframing.
Yes.
Not
Yes.
what's wrong with you, what
What
happened to
happened
you.
to you. Now let's go heal that so that you can show up more feeling human, so that we can do away with all of this. For me, I don't know any DEI practitioner that is truly on a journey toward freedom, which is the journey that I profess to be on, that wants to live in a world where this role is necessary.
It is necessary.
It's absolutely
It's
necessary.
so
It's
important.
absolutely necessary. But what does that mean? What does that say about how we are not living into the fullness and the richness of the humanity that was intended by the Creator? That we have to have people in these roles to help us understand that how you treat people matter.
Dang. It really does. It really does. And it
And
impacts
it
so
starts
much
with
about
how
them.
it starts with how you treat yourself.
And if you're broken,
You out here breaking other people.
and making them miserable.
Yep. Yep. And just generally underperforming. Just generally, just generally not living into all that you were created, divinely created to be.
Your full abundance.
Self. There's too much beauty and abundance in the world to believe that you are supposed to be lesser. But
Right.
your behavior has you showing up that way. Stop it.
And that behavior is rooted again in their traumas.
In the traumas. That's why I said before, I do this work, but we gotta go underneath. We gotta start talking about the, emotional intelligence, and we gotta talk about the psychological safety and the accountability. We gotta talk about the fear.
Right.
The fear that's holding you hostage.
I agree with you 100%. So how do we get started, Chandra? Like, what we gonna do?
Write your autobiography.
We gonna heal the world.
Yep. Read or write some poetry. Like I said, I got, my stuff. You gotta get your comfy sweatshirt and your favorite slippers and a glass of something. But a pretty glass, not just any glass, a pretty glass.
Not some regular.
Not no regular glass.
Gotta make you feel a certain way.
Yes. You gotta treat yourself like the royalty that you are.
Yes, indeed.
And then just start pulling back the layers. Just start pulling back. Just start asking the questions. And everybody that out there that has to show up and go to work, right? Start pulling back the layer. What is triggering you in those spaces, in those places? And how do you name that? Because a lot of times, particularly I would say women of color, Black women, let me be clear, right? We can internalize stuff real quick.
Yes, we can.
Like, I shouldn't have said it like that. I should have, I need to do this. And maybe I was too forceful. Well, maybe that red was too strong. Maybe that we can internalize stuff till the cows come home to our detriment. That's not fair. You don't have space and time to be your awesome self, your brilliance, because you're beating up on yourself because of the issues of the other people. Say, I can't be less than myself in order for you to feel more of yourself. If we gonna do this thing, because I'm all for equality, but we gotta first acknowledge the fact that we didn't start from the same place.
Girl, this has been amazing. Oh, I love you for coming on and sharing this.
Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate your interests, your platform, the work that you're doing, the way that you decided to use your life to be a
I
light
had
for
to.
others.
I had to. I had to get it out. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
what are you doing, Rhonda? It goes back to what you were saying. We have a purpose,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we are designed to live an abundant life.
that's right.
You
That's
got to
right.
get out of your own way. And I
That's
was
right.
certain that I was in my own way.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Nah. Meant it for your good. This is all about living an abundant life
Hmm.
and
And I'm
helping some
all
other
about
people
it.
understand that
Yes.
I said abundant, not excess.
Yes. Yes.
Abundant. We
We're not
meant to
talking about
live.
material things.
No, we talking about
Inner.
abundant.
We're talking about that
Yes,
inner work,
yes, yes.
that makes
Interior
you
freedom.
smile. That makes you smile walking down the street. Not because you got a Mercedes or
No,
Maserati, but
no.
just because the sun is hitting your body and you love the way it feels and you love yourself.
I'm telling you, it's all about interior freedom. Interior freedom. And when I was listening to, I had the privilege of sitting in an audience with Randall Robinson, who were one of the people at the time. He had written, I think, The Dead, or one of his books, where he was talking specifically about reparations, and someone asked him, what's the dollar amount, how
Hmm.
much?
I think I heard about
And he said, I'll leave that to someone else to calculate, because he wasn't thinking about it.
that.
His movement, his quest in that moment was not about the material freedom. He wanted for Black people to have an interior freedom within themselves, to know that you are connected to a rich legacy, and that you just got the baton passed to you for this time, and you just need to carry it forward to the next generation, and then they'll keep carrying it. It's about interior freedom.
100%.
And we got to be free within ourselves, which starts with our healing, so that when we operate with other people, people can't make us feel inferior.
That part, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much again. I
Thank you.
appreciate your wisdom. I knew you were going to come with it. So I'm so excited. I can't wait for everyone to
I blanked out. I have no idea what I said, so you should.
I remember we talked, you said I could do two things. I could think and I could talk.
Yes, yes,
And I was
yes.
like, you are so good at
That's
it.
it. That's it. That's it.
All
And on my
right.
good days, I do it in that order.
All right. Well, thanks again for coming on, and all the best to you.
To
All the
you
best
as
to you.
well. To
Loving
you
you
as
to
well.
love you to
Yeah,
pieces.
yeah, yeah. Love and light
Mm.
to you always.
Thank you. Hey, Arya.
Hey, Mimi.
How you doing?
Good.
Good. So what's this on your wrist?
It's the watch that. So you have to earn points, and then the governor that is the judge of these things. They will give you $50, but or $50, and they will have to send it. And each week you get more points, then you get more.
And you said, and your mom is wearing one too, right?
Yes.
So what's happening is Nielsen is a company, and they're tracking everything that you watch. And then they're going to pay you when you reach how many points?
103.
103 points?
Yes, right now I have 101.
Oh, right now you have 103 points?
No, I have 101.
Well, and how many points do you have to get to the $50?
So I had to get to 103, and my mom has to get to 104.
Oh, I thought you said you'd get to 300.
Nope, she has to get one because she's older, so she has to get to a bigger number.
Oh.
So I'm little, I had to get a younger number. Like 103.
So when you get your $50, what you gonna do with it?
I'm gonna save it, and I'm gonna get more money.
I like that, girl. It's all about the save, right?
Because I'm waiting so I can get millions and millions of dollars.
Okay, we got a millionaire in the making. How about that?
I'm going to try to get double 50s.
So 50 plus 50 is what?
I don't know.
100. Oh! $100? What you gonna do with $100? All right. Well, good luck with getting your money, girl. I'll talk to you later.
I'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Aria is out here making some serious big moves. Now my focus is on, encouraging her to hold on to that joy along the way. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Hold My Purse. Today's conversation with Chandra was a powerful reminder of what it takes to create meaningful equity and belonging. We explored how fairness and justice serve as a foundation for diversity and inclusion, why understanding history is essential for addressing inequities, and the transformative role leadership plays in driving cultural change. Chandra also emphasized the importance of personal well-being and self-awareness, reminding us that healing is integral to fostering true inclusion. Remember, belonging isn't just about being included, it's about being respected and valued. Let's carry these insights forward as we continue our journeys to create spaces where everyone can thrive. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and tell a friend. We need to build a tribe of self-care warriors who are taking back their power and living the life they want on their terms. Until next time, my fabulous friends, keep holding your purse because you are worthy of carrying only what truly is yours. Take care of you first. Peace. Today's episode is sponsored by Self-Care Shorty, your go-to for homemade skin products that keep you moisturized, healed, and at ease. Discover these amazing products today at selfcareshawty.etsy.com. That's selfcareshawty, SHAWTY.etsy.com.